Detective Lance. Not much to say about him. He starts off the show in season 1 as Green Arrow's sort of J. Jonah Jameson. He's very critical of him. He's the guy in the police force. He wants to make a special task force to take down the vigilante. It's very kind of cliche stuff. By the end of the first season, he actually ends up helping out the heroes. Then, gradually over the second season, he becomes Green Arrow's Commissioner Gordon type figure and becomes one of his allies. Sort of, yeah, like I said, not really a whole lot to say. He kind of has it out for Oliver too in the beginning because back when Oliver was shipwrecked, he took Sarah Lance with him. Which, yeah, I should mention, yeah, he's the father of Laurel and Sarah Lance. What a coincidence. Okay, that one's not so bad. So, yeah, and this is while Oliver's supposed to be dating Laurel. So, yeah, Oliver was a huge asshole, but it's not like the guy knew that the fucking ship was gonna get bombed by Merlin. So, yeah, eventually, so Sarah, we find out that Sarah's alive in the second season. She comes back to Starling City. Guy starts to lighten up. Guy hit the bottle pretty hard after he found out that Sarah was killed, but now that she's alive, the guy starts becoming less of a prick and starts becoming more trusting of Arrow and everything. So we get to the second season finale. A bunch of Miracruz soldiers attack the police station. He gets thrown on, like, across the room, hits a desk pretty badly, gets fucked up pretty bad. Then we get to this season. He's been promoted to captain because he was doing such a good job now because he's been taking out the bad guys along with Team Arrow, who have been kicking ass and taking names. So this season, Sarah really dies, or so we think. Sarah really dies. For the sake of argument, for the purposes of this video, we'll say she dies. But he doesn't know this, and Laurel refuses to tell him in very stupid reasoning, because apparently now he's developed a heart condition, and she doesn't want to tell him because he has a bad heart or something. And that's all this guy really does for this first 9 episodes. And they don't really do anything with him until the second half of the season. And we'll get to that once we get to that second half, but just to comment on it without getting into it too much, they do something with him in the second half of the season that would suggest that they really don't have anything for him to do. It's that stupid. Like, you might as well have just written him out of the show. The obvious thing to do in that situation would be to kill him off. Because I don't think there's any other way you could have got him out of the show without killing him off, without it seeming contrived. Because he was just too important of a character in the first couple seasons for him just not to be there anymore. But I wouldn't put it past these writers to totally contrive something. They certainly have experience doing it. The only other thing I would say about him is kind of like with the Diggle situation where Diggle doesn't make any effort to conceal himself. It's kind of a stupid thing. Lance works with Green Arrow but doesn't know it's Oliver Queen. And it's like they're standing right near each other. Granted, Oliver has a fucking hood on and is looking down and has a domino mask on. And it's usually dark, but you think he'd be able to figure it out, especially since he knows his daughter's Black Canary, the Sarah Lance Black Canary, and he knows the two of them work together, and he knows that Oliver and his daughter were an item at one time. Can't he put it together? It's something they don't. I don't think they really definitively answer all that well. It's like, I guess it's up in the air. Either it's like this thing where he's totally fucking clueless, or it's a thing where it's like a Commissioner Gordon thing where he just doesn't want to know, and he just leaves it at that. Yeah. So that's all I gotta say about him. Roy Harper. Roy. He starts off the show. He gets introduced, I think, pretty cleverly. I think it's about the 17th episode in. And I think it's cool that he doesn't, like, just start out. Well, okay. So, those that don't know, Roy Harper is Speedy in the comics, who is classically Green Arrow's sidekick. You know, going back way back to the 40s. You know, he was the Robin knockoff. And he's also gone by the names of Arsenal and Red Arrow. He starts off, he's introduced as this petty thief who lives in the Glades. He runs into Thea. They become an item. And then, meanwhile, while this is going on, there's this copycat vigilante going around calling himself the Savior, who's going around the Glades and executing people. Because I guess he's DC's Punisher or something now. So he's going around killing bad people. And Oliver doesn't like this. So here we go, coincidence. The Savior guy kidnaps Roy. And you know, Thea goes to Oliver and it's like, oh my god, my boyfriend's been captured by this psychopath. And you know, Oliver's like, don't worry, Thea, everything's gonna be alright. So he hoods up, goes out and saves Roy from the Savior guy. You know, this is back in season 1 when they weren't really using too many comic book villains. This is just random people they make up for villains. Villain of the weeks. And yes, yeah, okay, I'm giving them a pass. I'm giving them a pass on that contrivance that one of the 3 guys, the Savior guy, fucking kidnaps is Roy Harper, is the guy that his sister Thea is dating. Okay, give him a pass on it because the surrounding show is pretty decent. I'm not gonna knock them for a few things here and there. Unlike the 3rd season where everything's shit and they do 1 or 2 good things. Complete opposite. Anyway, so Roy is inspired to become a hero because of this guy saving him and everything. Okay, yeah, that's fine. So, getting to the 2nd season, I mean, in the 1st season, they show some really good restraint because other than that scene where Green Arrow saves Roy, I think they maybe share one other scene the whole season, Oliver and Roy, and Oliver's just like, you know, stay away from the Arrow. The guy's a fucking psychopath, you know. He's keeping up appearances because that's what Oliver Queen would say. And when the 1st season ended, I was thinking to myself, hey, you know, this is gonna be pretty cool. I can't wait to see how they get this guy to the point where he's Green Arrow's, you know, sidekick. Okay, so we get into the 2nd season. Roy just basically starts following Green Arrow around and starts getting pissed off about it. Eventually, he recruits Roy to become his eyes and ears on the street. And Roy, not being satisfied with it, gets all upset and shit. And he eventually kind of goes off on his own, investigating Brother Blood and what he's up to and shit. And he ends up getting himself kidnapped. But at least this time it's a much more organic way because I can actually buy that he would be kidnapped by Brother Blood because he was already pursuing Brother Blood anyway. It wasn't just some random kidnapping. So, Brother Blood uses one of his Miracle experiments. Arrow comes in and saves the day once again. So now Roy has the Miracle in him, so now he has the super strength. So now Oliver's forced to kind of keep an eye on him because he knows he has that shit in his system. And they begin into this episode where Oliver and Roy are together, and there's like one of Malcolm Merlin's earthquake machines are about to go off, and he needs Roy's strength to deactivate the bomb. So that's kind of like the moment where he kind of has to reveal himself to be Oliver Queen, and he kind of forced to kind of keep, put him on the team so he can keep an eye on him because the Miracle is kind of making him kind of crazy and shit, and he's kind of when he goes after these criminals, he doesn't hold back. He doesn't show a lot of restraint. So, I buy it. Up to this point, I buy this. I buy this gradual, build up of this character to the point where he's going to be Speedy, Red Arrow, Arsenal, alright? So a few episodes go by, Miracle starts really fucking with him. Roy goes on this huge rampage where he kills a police officer. He's all out of control and shit. He leaves Starling City. Slade finds him somewhere, and he uses his blood to make more Miracle and make all the Miracle soldiers. Oliver and everyone, they get the cure from Star Labs for the Miracle, give it to Roy. Then Roy apparently doesn't have any memory of what happened between the time he had the Miracle in the system and when he got the cure from the Miracle. This is where things start to go downhill. Granted, this is just in the finale, so, I'll still hold out hope here. But here's where it all starts falling apart. He doesn't have any recollection of anything that happened while he was on the Miracle, but during the episodes where Oliver let him into the team and things, that's where Roy got his archery training. He started training Roy in archery. So when we get to the finale, Roy volunteers to help out with the big fight against the Miracle soldiers. He's throwing arrows at Miracle soldiers. Well, excuse me, didn't you guys just say he had no memory of what happened? So what, he just picked up a bow and arrow and fucking started throwing arrows at people like nothing? It ain't no thing? Well, ask these writers now that they have fucking Black Canary fucking after a few boxing lessons. Really? I mean, other than... It's a shame, because, again, I mentioned this before, but, as far as the first Black Canary, Oliver, Merlin, things like that, they did a good job with this stuff up to this point. I think the one exception being maybe Huntress, where she's suddenly some assassin badass just because Oliver gives her a crossbow. But I think other than that, pretty good about the stuff. Still keeping it fairly realistic, right? At least, timetable-wise. But suddenly now he's an archer, right? So, we get into season 3. Now he's a full-blown member of the team. And just over the course of this summer, we're assuming it's a summer, so I guess it's kind of like real time, this show is happening. He's suddenly full-fledged archer who's on par with Oliver. He has the whole get-up and everything. Just like that. And another thing, too, during this time period we don't see where they're all kicking ass, taking names, this span of time between seasons 2 and 3, is apparently Roy and Oliver developed this really deep brotherly bond that they didn't even have in the first couple seasons. First season, he's just telling them to stay away from Arrow, and then the second season, he's kind of just putting up with them, and he's kind of a nuisance. Suddenly, they're like brothers. And don't tell me to go read the friggin' Arrow Season 2.5 comic.